They called it a legacy gala, but to me, it felt more like a farewell tour. A lifetime of aerospace engineering distilled into one evening of speeches, string quartets, and champagne toasts in a hangar I helped design. Skyward Engineering had done it up, floor-to-ceiling LED panels of satellites I helped build, mock-ups of navigation grids, even my old slide rule in a glass display case like it belonged in the Smithsonian. My name is Jerome Whitaker. I'm 65 years old. I live in Bellevue, Washington. I stood on a raised platform, my name embossed in bold silver on the giant screen behind me, and forced to smile as the CEO compared me to a star chart in chaos. Poetic nonsense, but the applause was loud and the flattery well-rehearsed. 42 years of guiding satellite guidance systems apparently earned me the title of the celestial cartographer. I'd have preferred engineer, but no one asked. I spotted my family at a table near the front, Lorraine, Camille, and Bryce. My wife and kids. Or, as I would soon learn, the pit crew for a betrayal 15 years in the making. Lorraine was clapping a little too hard, her face too soft, her smile just a bit too practiced. We hadn't been affectionate in years, yet she looped her arm through mine when I returned to the table, whispering something about how proud she was. Camille, our daughter, blinked rapidly like she was holding back tears, while Bryce gave me that wide grin he reserved for birthdays and bonus announcements. The two of them exchanged glances, nervous, eager, and then Camille leaned in. "We've got something for you, Dad," she said, pulling a small, sealed envelope from her purse. Bryce added, "It's a surprise. A family gift." Lorraine pressed the envelope into my hand like it was sacred, and Camille angled her phone just slightly, thumb hovering over the record button. I glanced at her, and she didn't flinch. "You're filming this?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just a keepsake," she said quickly. "You know, for the memory book." I nodded, turning the envelope over. Heavy paper. No return address. No label. Just my name in Camille's handwriting, neat and elegant. Lorraine rested her palm on my wrist as I broke the seal. I slid the papers out slowly. The first thing I saw was a letterhead, Hastings and Braun LLP. The next page was titled Divorce Settlement Terms. Beneath that, Asset Transfer Agreement, Pension Redistribution, and Trustee Authorization Change. I paused, blinked once, then twice. Camille was recording. Bryce leaned forward, waiting. Lorraine's hand didn't move. I could smell the Chanel on her wrist. Bryce broke the silence. "It's all pretty straightforward, Dad. Just a few signatures. You're set up for early retirement anyway. No hard feelings." I looked up at him, my son. The boy I taught to tie a tie, who once cried when I missed his 8th grade piano recital because of a launch failure. His eyes were flat now. Transactional. Camille was smiling like she'd won something. Lorraine looked away. "Sign now, and we'll handle everything," Bryce added, like I was some disgruntled employee being offered a severance. I turned back to the envelope. All three of them had signed already. Camille's phone kept recording. I heard her whisper, "Got it," like she couldn't help herself. I folded the papers slowly, neatly, slid them back into the envelope and placed it gently on the table. Then I smiled. "Understood," I said. Lorraine blinked. "What?" I said, "I understand. You'll have everything you asked for. I'll vacate the estate by morning." Camille's expression flickered, just a hint of confusion. "You're not going to fight it?" she asked. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a drafting pen. A gift from Lorraine. She gave it to me in 1989, engraved with my initials. I signed every page with steady hands. "This is really mature of you," Bryce said, suddenly unsure. "Isn't it?" I replied. I handed the envelope back. Camille ended the recording with a satisfied tap. They didn't know I'd spent 15 years preparing for this moment. That behind my calm was a quiet war chest. That everything they thought they owned had already begun slipping away the moment I touched that envelope. I stood, adjusted my lapel pin, and looked each of them in the eye. "You'll get what you deserve," I said, and walked away. I didn't pack much. 2 suits. A framed photo of my old dog, Newton. The little mechanical clock I kept on my desk since 1983. I left the rest behind: books, medals, family portraits. None of it belonged to me anymore. Not really. By the time the sun came up over the Cascades, the Whitaker estate was silent. Lorraine and the kids were still asleep, probably dreaming of escrow accounts and redecorating the den. I was gone by then. House keys on the marble kitchen counter. Garage remote next to them. The car I left in the driveway, a 1991 Saab I'd rebuilt from the frame up. They hated that car. Before I stepped out the door, I took one last look at the living room. The fireplace mantel where our wedding photo used to sit was now home to Camille's engagement portraits. Bryce's lacrosse trophies still stood proudly in the built-in cabinet. Every inch of that house was arranged like a showroom of curated achievements. I walked away without looking back. At 9:03 a.m., I received a text from Camille. Got the video? Posted a highlight reel to Insta. Already 700 likes, LOL, red heart. At 9:14, another message from Bryce. We'll have a moving crew come next week for your stuff. No rush. I didn't reply. At 10:07, Lorraine sent a final note. We appreciate your cooperation, Jerome. Hope we can keep this dignified. Dignified. That word made me laugh out loud in the parking garage beneath the extended stay suite I'd booked 3 weeks ago under the name Aaron Bell. Dignified, like they'd honored me with a retirement gift instead of a cleanly executed financial ambush. The documents they handed me last night were well prepared. I'll give them that. Bryce must have leaned on that friend of his in corporate law. But the mistake wasn't legal, it was strategic. They assumed they had cornered me, that I'd react like a wounded man, that I'd retreat quietly into old age with a suitcase and a sigh. They didn't know I'd already signed over the estate's primary deed to a shell corporation in the Caymans last year, that the pension they just redistributed had already been liquidated and converted into gold years ago, most of it stored in a secure facility in Liechtenstein. They thought they were executing a trap, but I was just checking off a box in a plan I'd started 15 years ago, a plan codenamed Orion. Before leaving the suite, I pulled out the drafting pen Lorraine gave me all those years ago and placed it gently into the drawer. One final signature. One last gift. Now it was time to disappear. 3 days later, the panic started. It began as a slow ripple, just a strange alert on Lorraine's phone from her banking app. Then a call from the concierge at her spa asking if her card was still active. By noon, her Amex was declined at a boutique downtown. That got her attention. By 2 p.m., Camille called her in a whisper-shrill panic. Mom, the Merrill account is gone. Gone. It's just not there. My login says no profile exists. Don't be ridiculous, Lorraine said, pacing the kitchen in bare feet. It's probably a system error. Try again. I did. And I called. They said the account was reassigned to an institutional custodian and then terminated. Lorraine nearly dropped her phone. She opened her own laptop and logged into her investment dashboard. Nothing. Not a single account in sight. Just a cheerful message that read, "Welcome. Let's get started building your future." She called Bryce. "Have you heard from your father?" Bryce, still in bed, groaned. "Why would I? We gave him what he wanted." "Well, something's wrong. The estate account is frozen." And Camille says, "Hold on." Bryce cut her off, suddenly awake. "My Skyward stock options aren't showing up. Where the hell did my RSUs go?" He jumped out of bed, grabbing his tablet. "This isn't possible. I had 30,000 shares." "You had," Lorraine said, her voice tightening. That's when Camille called again, this time nearly in tears. "Mom, I just got off the phone with the firm's legal consultant. He says we need to talk. All of us. Right now." They met in the sunroom of the estate, still technically theirs, though the paperwork had already quietly transferred ownership to a Nevada holding company named Parallax Axis Limited. The consultant's voice came through the speakerphone, brittle and urgent. "Mr. Whitaker, Jerome, has filed a series of withdrawal authorizations, fund closures, and account transfers over the last 96 hours. Most of them were triggered by trustee permissions you all unknowingly signed." "Wait," Bryce said. "We just filed for a split pension distribution and asset allocation. Why would that give him You signed over power of attorney in 3 clauses, buried in the asset agreements you presented to him. He used your own paperwork to access and dissolve his side of every shared account. And, more than that." There was a long pause. Then the consultant added, "Also, he's erased his personnel file from Skyward systems. We've been trying to contact HR. No record. No exit forms. No forwarding address. It's like he was never there." Camille looked up from her phone, pale. "I called HR too. You're right. His access credentials don't exist anymore. They said there's no Jerome Whitaker in the current or legacy employee records." Bryce threw his tablet across the room. It cracked against the wall. "What the hell is happening?" Lorraine pressed her hand to her forehead. Her nails, polished and perfect, trembled slightly. "He's not gone," she said quietly. "He's erased." Outside, the sprinkler system kicked on, watering grass that no longer belonged to them. It started with a voicemail. 15 years ago, I came home late from a systems check at the satellite test range in Pasco. Lorraine was asleep, or pretending to be. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing every few minutes with the same number. A quick glance. Voicemail. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. Lore. I miss you, the man said. His voice was low, too familiar. Dinner Friday? Same place? I booked the corner table. We'll talk about the fund distribution then. We're close. Fund distribution? I listened to it 3 times, then sat in the dark with a glass of water and tried to pretend it wasn't what I thought it was. But I knew that voice. Gordon Kress, her old college friend, and our family accountant. They used to joke about how Gordy always got the numbers wrong, always needed help with his tie. I hadn't seen him in a decade, but Lorraine still sent him Christmas cards. Said he did their taxes because he gave her a discount. I didn't confront her. That was the part that surprises people when I tell them. Well, the few I've told. I didn't yell. Didn't hire a lawyer. I didn't even change the locks. I just watched, and I started planning. At first, it was subtle. A second mailing address tied to a P.O. box in Spokane. Then a separate cell plan under an alias. I used contacts from my military days, back when I worked for the Air Force on encrypted telemetry. Before Skyward. Before Suburbia. Before I started pretending to be just another suit in a sea of engineers. They forgot I was ever trained for intelligence operations. That I had clearance levels Lorraine didn't know how to pronounce. I began to map it all out: backup email accounts, proxy IDs, and layered shell companies. A network of offshore trusts and invisible digital breadcrumbs. It became routine. I developed software guidance systems for satellites during the day, and by night I'd encrypt my own life. I named the plan Orion. Every quarter, I'd test it, transfer a small amount through one of the dummy accounts, see how long it took to get flagged. It never did. I bought properties under pseudonyms, set up emergency funds in Estonia, Panama, and Abu Dhabi. Created 3 fake identities, each with fabricated credit histories and job records. Paid the best digital ghostwriters money could buy. They say betrayal is sharp, a knife to the back. But for me, it was sandpaper. Slow, gradual, worn edges. Lorraine and Gordon never stopped. The affair faded in and out, subtle as dust. Dinners I wasn't invited to. Business trips that didn't line up with her consulting work. And Gordon, always just close enough to help. Always reviewing our retirement strategy. I let them think they were winning. I played the aging husband, the distracted scientist, the man too obsessed with orbital mechanics to notice when the foundation cracked beneath him. But every time they smiled at each other across a dinner table, I logged the date. Every receipt I found from that hotel in Vancouver went into the encrypted file labeled Constellation. By the time Lorraine handed me those divorce papers at the gala, Orion had already been armed for years. They thought they'd walked me into a trap. They never saw the launch countdown. It started with a decline card. Lorraine was at her favorite spa on Mercer Island, halfway through a cucumber toner facial, when the receptionist tapped lightly on the door. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Whitaker," she said, soft and unsure. "Your card didn't go through. Do you have another?" Lorraine blinked up from her spa bed, stunned. "That can't be right. Try again." They tried twice. Then a third time. Still nothing. She used her backup card, Camille's. By the time she got to her car, her phone was vibrating nonstop. 2 banks had frozen accounts. One of them flagged suspicious withdrawals totaling 6 figures. All legal. All authorized. Just not by her. Meanwhile, Bryce was being pulled into a conference room at Skyward's R&D division. His face still had that smug, post-gala glow when they handed him a printed dossier. "This was sent anonymously," said the compliance officer, pushing the folder toward him. "Internal funds misappropriated. Evidence includes invoices, personal transfers, and even a Venmo tag that says, and I quote, 'for the Tesla rims, bro.'" Bryce's smirk faltered. "Your access has been suspended," the officer said. Effective immediately. Back at Camille's office, things weren't much better. She was mid-presentation when her assistant tapped her shoulder and whispered something. "Ethics Review Board. They wanted her downstairs now. Turns out, uploading a video of your father's private signing moment, without his knowledge or consent, and framing it online as an act of aggression didn't sit well with the legal community. Especially when the metadata showed she had edited it to cut out audio. The complaint was official: evidence falsification, malicious intent, potential bar violations pending investigation. Camille tried to call her mother, who didn't answer. Lorraine, meanwhile, sat frozen in her parked Mercedes, eyes locked on her phone. A new email had arrived. Subject line, second mortgage confirmation, final installment due. She didn't understand. They had paid off the house years ago, hadn't they? She opened the attached PDF. Her name was there, but not as the primary signatory. That was Jerome. The date was over a year ago. She scrolled through the document, and there it was in black and white, a second mortgage signed, approved, processed, and quietly funneled into an account named ORX Holdings. She was never told. And now, the balloon payment was due. In full. It was a coordinated implosion. Jerome hadn't just left. He triggered everything. Gordon Kress felt it next. At exactly 2:32 p.m., the accounting firm he co-managed was raided by federal auditors. Not with sirens, but subpoenas. Financial misconduct. Misrepresentation of trust funds. Over a dozen suspicious transfers flagged for review. The auditors had an encrypted dossier. Bank statements. Call logs. GPS records. Photos. Even a timeline cross-referencing when Gordon was with Lorraine and when he was filing consulting hours with other clients. One of them turned out to be dead. Gordon tried calling Lorraine. Straight to voicemail. He tried Bryce. Disconnected. Camille sent a single message back. He knew. All of it. We're done. Jerome, from his remote cabin 3 states away, watched the data stream in. Not live, never that sloppy, but through a secure portal he accessed once a day. Everything was timestamped. Every lockout locked. Every account shuttered. He sipped his tea, a blend he grew to prefer after leaving coffee behind, and watched the satellite image refresh. The estate's driveway was empty now. Lorraine must have gone into town. Or maybe to Gordon's. He didn't care. The final piece uploaded. Confirmation of Camille's disciplinary hearing. He closed the laptop, tucked it back into its case, and placed it gently on the shelf beside a telescope he hadn't used in years. Operation Orion had achieved full ignition. Trajectory, irreversible. Target, dismantled. The Whitaker name hadn't been spoken in Raymond's office in over a decade. Calvin Whitaker, my younger brother by 3 years, was now CEO of Apex Nav Logistics, a powerhouse in military-grade supply chain tech. He hadn't returned my calls in years. Not because we fought. Not exactly. Because he disagreed with the one thing I refused to walk away from, Lorraine. So it surprised me when Lorraine showed up in his lobby, unannounced, looking worn down in a tailored coat and pearl earrings that no longer suited her face. She asked to speak to him directly. The receptionist hesitated. Calvin's calendar was sacred, protected by a gate of former Army intelligence staffers who now worked in his executive wing. But something in her tone must have cracked through. When she walked into his office, Calvin was standing with his back to her, staring out over the city. Jerome's wife, he said flatly, before even turning around. That's not a name I expected to hear again. Your brother, he's disappeared, she said quickly, still trying to maintain a note of control in her voice. I thought maybe you knew something, or that you talked to him. Calvin finally turned. He looked older, sharper. His hair was more silver than the last time she saw him. The medals on his shelf were still polished. His eyes, still cold where mine had gone soft over the years, pierced right through her. I heard, he said simply. The gala. The signing. The little family coup. She opened her mouth, but he held up a hand. Let me stop you there, he said. You're not here to talk to me. You're here because the man you thought you outsmarted has disappeared in a puff of silence, and the world is suddenly closing in around you. Lorraine's lips thinned. He's destroying everything. Our accounts. The trust. The firm. He didn't destroy anything, Calvin interrupted. He reclaimed it. She flinched. He was never just an engineer, Calvin said, walking slowly toward his desk. You thought he was all graphs and soldering iron and quiet coffee in the morning. But before Skyward, before he ever met you, he was tactical operations for the 73rd Recon Unit. He wrote decoy protocols for satellites that didn't officially exist. He helped shut down an intelligence leak in Berlin without ever crossing a border. That was 30 years ago, Lorraine whispered. Calvin stared at her. Jerome doesn't forget how to build quiet systems. He just stopped using them. Until now. She sat down, finally. Shoulders sagging. The truth unwinding her composure. I thought he wouldn't fight back, she murmured. Calvin leaned forward, voice low. That's the part you never understood. Jerome doesn't fight loud. He waits. He studies. And when he moves, you don't see it coming until you've already lost. Lorraine rose slowly, her eyes glazed. Where is he? She asked. Calvin smiled, a sad, almost respectful smile. "He's wherever he wants to be," he said, "and he's done being underestimated." She left his office in silence, and for the first time, she was truly afraid. The house was smaller than I remembered. Gordon Kress had downsized 2 years ago, one of those strategic lifestyle adjustments he mentioned over drinks with my son, thinking I wasn't paying attention. His new place sat on a corner lot in a quiet Bellevue suburb, all stone veneer and solar panels, the sort of home that screamed success in a whisper. The porch light flickered when I rang the bell. He opened the door in a polo shirt, wine glass in hand. "Ja," he started. I stepped inside without waiting. "Close the door, Gordon." He hesitated, then obeyed. There was a tremble in his hand as he set the glass down on the kitchen counter. I noticed the bottle, something imported, overpriced, and entirely average. "Lorraine's taste. I assume you've heard," I said. He nodded. "They're saying you emptied the accounts. That you vanished. Bryce's, Camille's talking to a PR guy. Lorraine's trying to spin it. You really planned all this." I sat at the bar stool across from him, folded my hands on the marble. 15 years of planning, actually. But we're not here to talk about strategy. He looked around like he hoped someone else might walk in. "What do you want from me?" I took a small flash drive from my coat pocket and set it on the counter. "That contains emails, message logs, video clips, GPS data. Everything. Every weekend trip to that cabin in Hood Canal. Every transaction labeled client entertainment. That was really just you and Lorraine." His face drained of color. "You hacked me." "I monitored you," I corrected. "And I had legal cause. You managed family trusts, remember? Financial misconduct under fiduciary law is a crime." "I didn't take a dime," he said quickly. "You took my wife. You took my peace. And when you weren't busy sleeping with her, you were helping her plan how to split my retirement benefits behind my back." I leaned closer. "There's a digital kill switch set to release all of this data. It uploads automatically every 24 hours unless a secure code is entered. You don't have that code. But I'll let you reset the timer manually each day. Log in, press confirm. Live another 24 hours without the world knowing exactly what kind of man you are." He looked like he might vomit. "You're not going to expose me now?" he asked, voice shaking. "No," I said. "That would be over too fast. This way, you'll feel what I felt every morning for 15 years. Waking up with dread in your chest, knowing the next breath might be the one that ruins everything." He stared at the flash drive like it might bite him. "What do I do?" he whispered. "You live," I said, standing. "You wait. You sweat. And you think, every single day, about whether tomorrow is the day the truth comes out." I turned toward the door. "And if you ever reach out to Lorraine again," I added, glancing back, "the timer stops for good." I left him there, frozen, silent, his carefully built life now tethered to a digital thread he couldn't see. The first bead of sweat rolled down his temple before I even reached the sidewalk. They thought it was a settlement meeting. Lorraine, Camille, and Bryce arrived at the Ellsworth Grand Hotel under tight expressions and strategic silence. Lorraine wore her courtroom pearls. Camille carried a sleek leather binder, no doubt filled with proposals and non-disclosure clauses. Bryce showed up late and irritated, dressed like someone who still hadn't accepted he was on administrative leave. They were led to the ballroom on the 12th floor. A staff member with a Bluetooth earpiece greeted them and said the attorneys would be joining shortly. Complimentary beverages were available, all very official. What none of them realized was that they weren't walking into a settlement. They were walking into an exhibit. As the three of them entered the ballroom, the lights dimmed and the doors clicked shut behind them. A voice, my voice, came through the speakers overhead. "Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, let's take a moment to reflect on the concept of family, trust, loyalty." A spotlight illuminated the projector screen at the front of the room. Bryce turned toward the doors. "Locked. What the hell is this?" he muttered. The first video played, grainy security footage from a Hood Canal rental property. Gordon and Lorraine, arms linked, laughing, walking inside. Camille gasped. Lorraine went pale. On-screen text followed. Duration of affair, 15 years. Confirmed visits, 74. Average monthly billing to family trust, $3,278. The second video was from the gala, unedited, raw. Camille holding her phone, Bryce smirking, Lorraine sliding the envelope across the table. My hands unfolding the legal betrayal. Then came the overlays audio from Lorraine's Tough Choices interview with a divorce mediator, Camille's falsified metadata file uploaded to her influencer account, and Bryce's Skyward expense report with bolded lines like, consulting dinner, $950 for self, and reimbursed drone, never purchased. They stood frozen as every ugly corner of their plan was revealed, every backdoor deal, every asset siphoned, every smug text message. At the 30-minute mark, the projector cut out. The lights came back on, and that's when the wall retracted. On the other side of the ballroom, separated by a thin divider the whole time, stood members of the press, ethics officers from Camille's firm, auditors from Skyward, and a legal investigator from the Washington State Bar Association. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded. Microphones extended. Bryce cursed under his breath. Camille started whispering, "Oh my God. Oh my God." Lorraine tried to speak, but my voice came through again, one last time. I am not present today. I don't need to be. Because the truth, when revealed with precision, does not require drama. It requires light. Today, I've chosen to turn that light on. The screen flickered once more and showed a line in white text against a black background. This is the consequence of your choices. Welcome to accountability. Then the feed went dark. The investigators moved in. Camille's supervisor stepped forward, asking her to accompany him for a conversation. Bryce was quietly approached by Skyward's legal counsel, who began listing off possible clauses for breach of trust. Lorraine stood motionless as two reporters bombarded her with questions about tax violations and improper trust activity. None of them answered, because none of them had expected this. They had counted on quiet shame. They got public justice. From a room across the city, I watched the live feed through a secure uplink. Audio only. Faces blurred. Just enough to ensure I stayed one step removed, always present, never seen. I sipped my tea and smiled. They had delivered the betrayal in front of a crowd once. It was only fair they received their reckoning the same way. It was always going to end this way. Not with a bang, not with a final confrontation, but with the quiet hum of the sea, a sky without satellites, and the sound of my own breath in the early morning air. The island wasn't even marked on most commercial maps. A speck in the Philippines, reachable only by boat and only if you knew the right man with the right name. It had no address, no Wi-Fi, no banking terminal. That was the point. I rose each morning with the tide, ate fresh fruit, slept on linen sheets. My back hurt less here. I read books I'd long forgotten I owned. And at night, I'd sit on the porch with my tea and listen to the wind cut across the water like a clean blade. 3 weeks after the hotel incident, I received a call from Calvin. He never said hello. "They're folding," he said. Bryce got fired. Camille was put on probation pending disbarment. Lorraine's being investigated by 2 agencies, and Gordon's firm is gone. "You really did it." "I didn't do anything," I said. "I just stopped protecting them from the truth." Calvin let out a low whistle. "You're not coming back, are you?" I watched a heron lift off the shoreline, wings wide, lazy in the wind. "No," I said. "They've taken enough already." We didn't say goodbye. That afternoon, I opened the last program still active on my secure server. A simple dashboard. Names, dates, account alerts, each one tied to the people who once shared my home. I stared at it for a long moment. The blinking green indicators pulsed like heartbeats. All still running. All still traceable. Then I clicked the red button marked Disconnect All. The screen flashed once, then went still. And just like that, the digital veins that had kept me connected to their destruction were gone. I shut the laptop, slid it under my bed, took a deep breath, and smiled. Not because I won. Not because I was vindicated, but because I had finished it. All of it. The bitterness. The weight. The invisible chain of responsibility I'd carried for so long. I stepped out into the sun, warm and gold. My bare feet hit the sand, soft and forgiving. The water touched the shore, and the tide carried my last footprints away. No headlines. No revenge fantasies. Just peace. The kind of peace you don't announce. The kind you earn.